Morning, everybody, and welcome into the Steven Singer Studios. I'm Marc Farzetta, and welcome into the Farzy Show. So much to get to today. We got a Farzy in the field for you a little bit later, where, yes, again, we examine a little further Carson Wentz and what would make you happy as Eagles fans in terms of a return on that investment. What would the Eagles need to get back for you to say, okay, I'm happy with this? Mike Tannenbaum also joins the show, former Jets general manager, also worked with the Miami Dolphins with Bill Parcells. So we got a lot of show for you to pack into 1 hour as per usual. We have another tweet out there from Les Bowen, the most recent report about what the Eagles could do in the draft, and also what is going on right now in that Carson Wentz deal. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to what happened last night with the 76ers. You know what we're going to do? We're also going to celebrate the fact that we finally have hockey to watch tonight. Ha ha! Finally! We get our Flyers back. 11 days in between games, we finally get to watch some Flyers hockey. To hell with you, COVID. We get to enjoy some pucks tonight, so I look forward to doing that. Now, let's start off with football, and then we'll work in the Sixers because they did win last night, and Mike Tannenbaum's going to join us in about 20 minutes, so I want to make sure that we're bookending this with football here. We're going to have the basketball in the middle. I have to get to this immediately because it really does give you a little bit of a peek inside what the Eagles are doing behind the scenes. This is what dropped from Les Bowen yesterday. If you didn't see this tweet, Les Bowen, Inquirer.com, spoke with an NFL management source, quote, not from the Eagles, about Carson Wentz and the drama going on there. His viewpoint, if Wentz doesn't want the Bears, Bears aren't going to trade for him. Makes sense. Eventually, the Eagles take whatever Indy is offering, maybe a second plus something. Also, the Eagles draft a quarterback 6 overall. What? What? Huh? I like how that's the last line, by the way. I like how that's the last thing that Les says. By the way, I think a quarterback at 6 overall. Melt my brain. So, a lot of times when we've had a guest on, I have said, how much of this Carson Wentz drama has to do with the fact that the Eagles have a lot of confidence in Jalen Hurts. Not necessarily that, oh, well, stuff is hit the fan with Carson, so well, I guess we got to move on. Is any of this, any ounce of this, fit in the realm of, man, Jalen Hurts is great, so we don't need Carson anyway? Because that doesn't, I don't feel that. I might get a little bit of that vibe from the locker room, especially with the idea that Jalen Hurts is going to go work out with these guys. But I wouldn't put anything past Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles front office for what they could do in this draft. I'm like most people. I want them to go wide receiver. I want them to see what they have in Jalen Hurts because maybe you don't have to draft a quarterback here. Maybe you actually got a quarterback. And if they do draft a quarterback, that means to me that the Jalen Hurts thing was only to piss off Carson Wentz. That's all it was. Just to take a quarterback at that spot at 53 overall last year when you're going to move on from him a year later anyway. Oh, my God. That would just make that pick look even dumber. And then, again, when I go back to that line from Les Bowen's tweet about him, by the way, they take a quarterback 6 overall. The other thing that jumps to mind is, damn it, quarterback factory. Here we go. How we said the words. And now we're still in that. We're living in that as our reality. That this is supposed to be a quarterback factory. All those other teams, like the Patriots that were winning Super Bowls and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just won a Super Bowl. Those guys are morons. What are they doing? All you're supposed to do in the NFL is just churn out quarterbacks, not win championships. That's not what it's about. Hey, if the Eagles get Jalen Hurts to actually play well, you know what, and win some games, maybe we'll have a parade just because they've churned out another quarterback. Maybe if they go out there and they actually take care of business with, I don't know, maybe they draft Mac Jones. Maybe they trade up for maybe Justin Fields is another guy out there. Maybe if they actually go get those guys and they can play, maybe we'll have a parade for that too. Because after all this is about is a quarterback factory. Nothing else matters. Anyway, I wouldn't put anything past the Eagles, as I've said, as to what they could do with that 6 overall pick. And I'm not so unsure that it's unlike a head coach drafting a quarterback where it buys you more time to develop them, to install your system, your game plan, and all that. I'm not so sure that couldn't do the same thing for Howie Roseman. Imagine this world, because this is a reality. Excuse me. This is a very real reality here. Howie Roseman drafts a quarterback and then buys another couple years as that quarterback develops. Because all that quarterback will have to do is show some promise. That's it. He's just got to show some promise. And then Howie can come out smelling like roses through all of this. And by the way, he's done this before. Howie Roseman has come through really weird instances, and obviously Chip Kelly, the thing is what I'm talking about. He's come through really weird instances and come out on the other side smelling like roses. Literally told to go away in the third and final year of the Chip Kelly era in Philadelphia. Literally told to go away, and then he comes back and wins the Super Bowl 2 years later. So, I mean, really, Howie is walking through a lot of mud right now amongst a lot of people here in Philadelphia, a lot of Eagles fans. And he could come out if he does draft a quarterback. Oh, look at this guy. Oh, he's pretty good. Oh, he knows what he's doing. Maybe he'll build another Super Bowl roster in just a couple of years. Who knows? But really, for me, it would be the biggest red flag, flare in the air type of situation that they obviously should not have taken Jalen Hurts if they're just going to draft a quarterback in this year's draft. I don't put it past them. At this point, obviously, we're still a little far away from the draft. But one of the arguments that people were proposing to me on social media last night, or really yesterday afternoon after this Les Bowen tweet went out there, was, oh, that's just Howie trying to convince other teams that they're going to take a quarterback at number 6 to try to convince them to trade up with the Eagles at 6. So the Eagles get another first-round pick and maybe another pick later in the draft as well, or we'll get another pick later in the draft as well. And my thought, well, it crossed my mind, but the reason it quickly left my mind was because Les Bowen said it's not an Eagles source that's putting it out there. If Les Bowen just tweeted, and that's why he puts it in the tweet, that it wasn't an Eagles source he was talking to, it was an NFL source. So that's why if it was the Eagles, I think, oh, yeah, sure. If he doesn't put that in there, I'm assuming, like some people would, that it was the Eagles leaking this out just for that reason, to try to drum up interest for somebody else to move up and take their 6th pick while the Eagles can move back a couple of spots and get another first-round pick and a later pick as well. But the fact that he goes out of his way to point out that it wasn't an Eagles source makes me a little bit more concerned about what they could be doing in this draft. I think it's a very real report. But as far as the real meat and potatoes of it, besides the throwaway line, if you will, at the end, which is, in my opinion, burying the lead, the other part of the story from Les Bowen in this tweet is Carson Wentz. As I said yesterday, before this Les Bowen tweet even came out, my gut feeling was that the Bears are walking away from the negotiating table, and that the Indianapolis Colts are the only team looking at the Eagles going, are we going to do this? Because we both know where Carson wants to be. If it's not Philadelphia, he wants to be right here. He wants to be with Frank Reich. He wants to be with Indianapolis. And he wants to be with Press Taylor. No other place makes sense for Carson. And I know the argument might come up with some fans that'll look at it and say, oh, Carson's the player. He signed a contract. He'll go where the Eagles trade him. No, he won't. Because the team ultimately wants the quarterback they're going to be paying a lot of guaranteed money to over the next 3-4 years. They're going to want that guy to want to be where he's going. And Carson Wentz isn't going to work out if he goes into Chicago. And I know some people are talking about John DeFilippo. Oh, John DeFilippo. John DeFilippo is who Carson Wentz has been trying to avoid, whether John DeFilippo physically, that human being in particular, specifically, or somebody like John DeFilippo, somebody that will coach him tough, because that's why John DeFilippo was praised here in Philadelphia, because he knew how to rein in Carson Wentz. He knew how to coach up Carson Wentz. He knew how to challenge Carson Wentz. Does any of that sound like what Carson has been getting over the last couple of seasons where he has not played well at all? Yeah, that doesn't sound like anybody. Doesn't sound like one person. Who's come out as, well, that guy's really tough on Carson Wentz. Man, Doug Peterson's really tough on Carson Wentz. Oh, man, Press Taylor, really tough on Carson Wentz. Mike Groh, oh, my God, so tough on Carson Wentz. Yeah, nah, I haven't heard that. And you haven't either. You know why? Because it hasn't existed since John DeFilippo is here. So for the people that want to draw the connection that John DeFilippo is now the passing game coordinator with Chicago Bears as, oh, why wouldn't Carson want to be there? Because he knows the hard ass is there. He doesn't want to be coached by a hard ass. So Les Bowen put me in a tizzy yesterday. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a tizzy even right now. But again, if you look at all the quarterbacks that are going to be available in that first round, nothing would shock me at this point as to what the Eagles could be doing in that draft. And we still got some time to try to figure out what's going on there. Like I said, Mike Tannenbaum is going to join the show coming up in a little bit. He'll give us his take on all of this, as well as kind of how we got here as we broke down, as we tried to break down a little bit for you yesterday. Let's get to those 76ers last night. I think I speak for all of us when the final seconds ticked off that clock when I say, phew, that was awful. That's not how you end a basketball game. 19 points. You end up losing the second half by 19 points. You won the game. I'm happy you won the game. You found a way to win at the end when nothing was going your way, and the Houston Rockets were dropping everything. John Wall goes off for 8 straight points against you. You're hitting threes from 35 foot threes. Like, you're insane game, the way that game ended against the Rockets. You were up 23 points with about 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. That was supposed to be an easy win. That was supposed to be the type of game that, hey, Joe, your back's bothering you? Why don't you take a break? And instead of getting that, I believe he had 19 of his 34 points in the second half, including that sweet fadeaway on Boogie Cousins. That was more or less your clincher in the final seconds there of the fourth quarter. That was an awful way to close out that game. And I know you didn't have Ben Simmons, and I know turnovers were running amok. That's not how a great Eastern Conference team, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference right now, is supposed to close out a game. Or the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, record-wise, is supposed to close out a game. Ultimately, my positive takeaway from the game is that stuff hit the fan, and they were able to corral it and still hold on to the win. Good teams find a way to win. But, man, you can't help focus on those turnovers. And, man, you can't help focus on the fact that without Ben Simmons running the offense, especially late in the game, this is a tough team to watch sometimes, and turnovers is exactly what happens when you don't have Ben running the point. Earlier in the game, Tobias Harris was running the point position for you because Seth Curry had to leave the game for a brief moment with injury, and then he came back and had a great game after that. But Tobias Harris was running point guard. He was joking after the game. He's like, yeah, my natural position. We have an all-star point guard right now in Ben Simmons, so I'm just looking to take his spot. So Tobias Harris was having fun. You win the games, you can have some fun afterwards. But Tobias Harris was laughing about it, and I thought he brought the ball up rather well, distributed rather well, had 5 assists in the game last night and had some big shots for you as well. But as that game went on, they looked exactly like a team coming back from a West Coast road trip. And that's not an excuse. They still need to play better. But Doc Rivers even came out afterwards and said they got sloppy with it. Guys' legs were tired. I think it was Seth Curry that came out after the game and said that. Coming back from the road trip, coming back home, it was a little bit trying to shake off the jet lag, I guess, the sea legs, if you will. And that's what it looked like. And I stayed away from that game last night, bet-wise. We'll get to big bets, obviously, later in the show. But I was a little concerned about that with the Sixers coming back from their road trip and really them having that kind of extra turbo in the tank. And they did not have that even a little bit last night. But it was still good to see them at least be able to get that win. And Joel Embiid, I love hearing him say after the game that no matter what, and this is the mentality you want in the guy that's your leader, no matter what, he was not going to let the Sixers lose that game. So whether his back was still bothering him or not, probably was. Anyone who has a back injury, you don't got to be a professional athlete. Anyone who has a back injury knows backs are a fickle thing, and they don't ever really go away. So I'm watching him play yesterday. Again, fadeaway jumpers, going hard to the rim, falling on his back and all that. And for him to come out afterwards and say basically he's fighting through that and he wasn't going to let the team lose, that's what you want in Joel Embiid. For all the faults that you could look and the turnovers that you saw and the sloppiness that Doc Rivers talked about post-game, you saw Joel Embiid say, yeah, guys, the hell with that. We're going to win this game. And every time, I can't help it. We've talked over the last couple of weeks here about Joel Embiid going out there and playing like a guard. And it was like almost like attacking him. He can't play like a guard. What's he doing playing like a guard? To me, he is more so playing like a 90s small forward. Like, that's what he looks like to me. He maybe a shooting guard even. And you talk about guys like, I'm not saying Michael Jordan, but you watch that turnaround, you think of Kobe Bryant, you think of Michael Jordan, you watch that turnaround fadeaway, those are the guys you think of. A guy like Penny Hardaway even, right? Just to have that as part of your arsenal. To see a 7-foot center be able to do that, it's just still amazing. The feet of a ballerina when he's shooting like that. And for him to get a clutch shot like that with I think it was about 30 seconds left in the game, that fadeaway over DeMarcus Cousins was just beautiful. It was a thing of beauty. And when he had everything clicking for himself, the way he did last night, it's a comforting feeling. And it goes back to what I had said earlier when we just started this subject. Good teams find a way to win. And the Sixers are a good basketball team. And even when they were tired, and you could tell that they were tired, and again, that's not an excuse. I'm not accepting it. That's just what happened last night. When you see them start to get a little laxed, you need your leaders to step up. Tobias Harris did that for you yesterday. Joel Embiid did that for you yesterday. And by the way, how about Danny Green? We were just talking about Danny Green yesterday, making some clutch shots. He had the same with 367 shooting percentage from three-point land. And that's what he had last year. That's what he has so far this year. And yesterday he drops in 5 threes. Nice to see that from Danny Green. Great to see it from Danny Green, as a matter of fact. Needed a game like that. And Matisse Thybulle getting thrown in the starting lineup as well last night in replacement of Ben Simmons, forcing turnovers for you, getting a couple of steals, hitting a 3 or 2. That's what you love to see from Matisse Thybulle, who earlier in the season, it seemed like Tyrese Maxey was taking a lot of minutes from him. And then Doc Rivers has wanted to shift gears to get a more defensive look from Matisse Thybulle, get more defensive help, and he has been every ounce of that so far this year. I'm rooting for him. I think he's a great dude, and you need him to be that 3-and-D type of guy if he's going to come off the bench and consistently be able to give you minutes. And also, if he's going to do that, you need him to consistently give you points as well. So it was a great start to that game, a great first half, a great maybe 2.5 quarters. And then towards the end of the third, and especially the fourth quarter, it left a lot to be desired. Also, Doc Rivers, after the game, we'll get to this in our morning rush, had some fun with one of the reporters. And Doc Rivers is a funny guy. I'll say that. Doc Rivers is a funny guy. So we're about to get into some more football conversation with our friend Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN front office insider in the NFL, former general manager of the New York Jets. So we'll talk to him in just a minute. A little bit later in the show, we'll get into Flyers-Rangers tonight. We get our first Flyers game in quite some time. So much to get to. Also, our morning rush, Phillies pitchers and catchers going with their first workout today. So look forward to seeing all that and more. I do have to tell you about my good friend Steven Singer. We are here at the Steven Singer Studios. Steven Singer right at the other corner of 8th and Walnut. If you got a big day coming up, anniversary, birthday, whatever it may be, Valentine's Day just went in the rearview mirror. So if you want to spoil the person you love in your life, make sure you check out Steven Singer, Steven Singer Jewelers. You go in there, and Steven, love this line. Steven likes to say that he is between Walmart and Tiffany's. If they had a baby, that'd be Steven Singer. And why is that? Good quality and great quality, and also the perfect price. You know, every single time you walk into Steven Singer Jewelers or you log on to IHateStevenSinger.com, you're getting the perfect price every time, and you're getting taken care of by real jewelry experts. If you don't know what you're doing, guess what? They do tenfold, and they'll walk you through every step of the way when it comes to buying a beautiful diamond or piece of jewelry from Steven Singer Jewelers. Right now, you go to IHateStevenSinger.com. You can use the appointment scheduler. This helps them go through all CDC guidelines appropriately. They have the plexiglass set up in the store. You make the appointment. You walk up to the door. You give it a ring. They open it up for you. You walk in, you got plenty of space because they have spread everybody out in the store, and they just take great care of you. I speak from experience. I've gone to Steven Singer for every major jewelry purchase in my entire life. That's how great he is. Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. Again, use the appointment scheduler to make yourself an appointment, or other corner of 8th and Walnut in Philadelphia. IHateStevenSinger.com. All right, coming up. We're going to get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain with the Philadelphia Eagles and really Carson Wentz. And Mike Tannenbaum is a guy that obviously is not a Philly guy, right? So he can provide for us that national perspective on a lot of things. We have our own vibes here in Philly. Les Bowen with his tweet yesterday. But I'm curious always to get that national perspective to see how the Eagles are viewed and how their situations are viewed. So joining us right now, the Zados Investments guest line, let's bring in our good friend, Mr. Mike Tannenbaum. The Zados Investments guest line, my pleasure to have on with us the former GM of the Jets. He also worked with the Dolphins, and right now he is the ESPN front office insider. Mike Tannenbaum joins the show. Mike, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Great to be with you. How's everything?
Everything's great. Now, I understand are you writing for, is it the 33rd team as well? 33rd, the 33rdteam.com?
Yeah, so actually it's a pro football think tank that I started with some former general managers and head coaches. And basically, we look at all the issues of the week, get together once a week on Zoom, and then put out a newsletter. You could go to 3013.com and get a free newsletter to give you some differentiated observations about the NFL from people that are former head coaches and GMs.
Okay, that is awesome. I have checked it out. I know former president of football operations here in Philadelphia, Joe Banner, has written a thing or two for that as well. So and been involved with it. So yeah, it is great. You guys do an awesome job with that. So congrats on the success of that site in itself. Mike, we're looking for some more success here in Philadelphia. We enjoyed a Super Bowl parade not that long ago, and it just seems like we're a far cry from that here in Philadelphia. And the main reason is the quarterback play, as well as drafting and other things that have gone into it. So right now, I'm curious to get your perspective on this from a national perspective and all your experience in the front office around the league. What do the Eagles have here with Carson Wentz? Do they have somebody that's worth 2 second-round picks, a first-round pick? What do they have right now in Carson?
I think he's a really good player. What's interesting is when you look at his sort of like career trajectory, it's one of those where if he struggled initially, you would say, okay, it's confidence, it's transitioning from FCS to the NFL. So it's weird that he came in and had the success he did, and then obviously had a big bump in the road last year. But clearly, I think those are things that can be fixed. And if they wind up trading Carson, then look, they obviously feel good about Jalen Hurts, and they're dealing from a position of strength. And I think the other thing, as we saw with the Jared Goff trade recently, which I'm sure the way Philadelphia is looking at it is, if we do trade Carson Wentz, it's an opportunity to move on from these contractual guarantees, which will allow us to do other things, maybe keep someone like a Zach Ertz or, do something with Brandon Graham. So there's other sort of like opportunities that would create. But I've been a fan of Wentz. I think he's a winner. He's someone that arguably 2.5 years ago was maybe one of the 5 best players in the whole sport. And hopefully he can get back to that level.
Are you confident that he'll be able to do that with the classic change of scenery?
We've seen that happen in people's careers before. Brett Favre was a failure in Atlanta, went on to have a Hall of Fame career in Green Bay, one of many. Rich Gannon, it didn't happen overnight. He was on a number of teams. And I think sometimes we forget that the quarterback position fundamentally is one of a development position. And that's why it's unusual to see sort of like his trajectory go up and then obviously, come back down last year. But when you look at talent and character, I think he checks both those boxes, and maybe, fresh scenery will do him well.
The latest report right now is that the Colts seem to be the number one team in pursuit of Carson Wentz. It was talked about as the Bears as well. Do you see this as being a two-horse race, no pun intended, with the Colts for Carson Wentz? Or do you see maybe another team popping in here?
I think it's bigger than that. When you talk to people around the league from a macro standpoint, there's one quarterback that has a first-round grade in the 2022 draft. And the reason that's so noteworthy is that brings a lot of other teams into the discussion in terms of getting quarterbacks for the future. So take teams like Atlanta, New Orleans, even Tampa Bay, who may need a quarterback in the coming years. I have upwards of 18 teams that could be looking for a quarterback. So I think when it's all said and done, if we were having this conversation in September, I think we're looking at a massively different quarterback landscape.
You don't think it'll take that long to make a deal? You don't think Carson Wentz goes into training camp, do you, with the Eagles?
I don't think that's a win-win. I think if they wind up trading him sooner than later, Mark, is better for both sides, because what that does is it puts him in the best position possible to be successful with Team X. And then Philly obviously wants to recruit picks and use them this year.
So what happened with Carson? Like from again, that national perspective, from all your experience, what are people saying happened to Carson Wentz here in Philadelphia?
Hard to say. Two sides to every story. And look, when you don't play well in the Northeast and being in New York for as long, it's hard to get out from under. And look, maybe it's just one of these situations where it's just, again, a fresh start is good for everybody. And hopefully he can regain his confidence, because to me, watching him play, it seemed like there was a few times where there was somebody open, there was a receiver in the progression that was open, and he just had trouble pulling the trigger. And again, hopefully he gets off to a good start someplace else. The Colts, for example, have a great offensive line, which, by the way, I think Philly has a great offensive line. You look at Philly and Kansas City, I thought very similarly, they both had – what's hard about our sport is when you have multiple injuries at the same position, which both teams did, that's hard to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. We can identify with that certainly in Philadelphia. As far as the front office goes here in Philadelphia, I'm also curious to get your perspective on that because we're not so high right now on Howie Roseman, especially now that it seems like Carson Wentz is about to be dealt after the Eagles a couple of years ago traded up big to get him. Number 2 overall pick going from 13 to 8 to 2 to get him. Another first-round pick was involved in that trade to move up to that spot. So how are the Eagles doing away from the football field in terms of personnel and the front office in itself?
Yeah, Mark, I think the object of the exercise is to win a Super Bowl. And, Howie Roseman did that. That's not a hope. That's not conjecture. He did that. Look, have things been perfect since? No. But, I think if we had, Ron Wolf on the phone right now, he would tell you about all the picks he missed, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So, obviously, they have to rebuild the infrastructure of this team. I think getting players back like Andre Dillard become a force multiplier because I think he's a great young left tackle. I thought that was a great trade 2 years ago when they traded above Houston to get him. So they have a lot of work to do. I think Howie would be the first one to tell you that. But look, they won a Super Bowl, and I don't think we could overstate that. It's hard to do, and just 3 short years ago is when it happened.
Mm-hmm. Speaking with Mike Tannenbaum, Mike, the other aspect of this is also Zach Ertz, and he's a name that's come up a lot in trade conversation. He's not expected to return to the Philadelphia Eagles. Where do you think would be a good landing spot for Zach Ertz?
Yeah, I think he's a really good player, but I also think Dallas Goedert could do everything that Zach Ertz could do, and you can't pay them all. And I can understand why, they want to move on from him if they could get the right value. There's a ton of teams that could use that, but I'll give you one. New England. When New England was rolling, they always had production in the passing game from the tight end position, something they haven't had in a couple of years. So to me, that would be a natural landing spot.
Wow, yeah, I know a lot of Eagle fans would not like him in that Patriot jersey. To go back to Carson Wentz for a second here, I know about a month or so ago you would put out a report that, or at least an idea, that Carson Wentz could essentially buy his free agency for $20 million and choose his spot. And if that's the case, is that still a possibility right now as far along as we are?
Yeah, I think the Matt Stafford trade kind of changed that a little bit. And what Mark, basically the way that works is in Jared Goff's case, basically the guarantees go from one team to the next. They carry with you. But because Carson Wentz has such massive guaranteed money that hasn't hit the cap. So the way the system works is for every dollar that's paid to the player as a bonus is prorated over the life of the contract. When you trade that player, the money that hasn't hit the cap accelerates in, causing these massive dead money charges. My idea was very simple, was if you took $20 million of, I believe, the $33 million that's out there, I could be off on what's going to hit the cap, but if he wrote a check, if the league year, let's just say, starts on March 12th, if on March 11th Carson Wentz writes a check to the Eagles, they will get a cap credit on the next day, the first day of the following league year, for $20 million, meaning what's left on their cap in terms of dead money would be reduced by $20 million. That very same day when he's traded, the new team writes Carson Wentz a check for $20 million. So basically, Carson Wentz is made whole, and the new team is absorbing $20 million of that cap charge. Variations of that idea have happened, never to that extent, but it's totally legal within the rules. And to me, it's a win-win from a standpoint. Philly is getting $20 million further off of their cap. And if your team X, let's say it's Indy, and you see Wentz as a long-term sort of solution, not the Phillip Rivers Band-Aid, you could, let's say the number is $90 million over 3 years that you want to pay Wentz. Of the 90, you would give him $20 million up front. So again, Wentz is made whole from the signing bonus standpoint. Philly gets the cap credit. But for that to all work, the new team would have to really feel like, hey, we're getting a frontline starter in Wentz. There's no risk we need to take. And that's whether or not, candidly, the marketplace is going to dictate that. If Philadelphia has 5 or 6 suitors or not, may dictate how much that team has to pay.
My thought, and this might be getting too specific, but I remember when Nick Foles moved from Philadelphia to Jacksonville, he essentially bought back his free agency for $2 million. Would this be comparable, but on a much greater scale?
Yes, it's a similar concept with the new team reimbursing. And look, in Foles' case, he clearly knew, like, he has a very good agent. His agent knows what he could get. So it's a similar sort of dynamic.
Okay. Now, what do you think eventually does get it done for Carson Wentz? If you're in a front office somewhere in the league, and the report right now, the latest one is that the Colts are supposedly offering 2 second-round picks, do you think eventually that's what Carson Wentz would bring back to a team?
I think the value at the end of the day, what Philadelphia, in my opinion, has to say to itself is like Goff was Goff, and that's a different dynamic. The value we're getting is we're getting out from under this contract, and any additional draft choice compensation is a benefit. That to me, when they have that mindset is when this deal gets done, I would like sitting here on February 17th, I understand why they're waiting. Like if I was them, I'd want to, try to maximize the value, obviously. But at some point, I think that's what they have to reconcile. They have so many other things that they're going to want to get done, be at linebacker or some other needs that they have that they have to feel like, hey, we could go win with Hurts. He's on a rookie deal. Let's try to minimize our losses in terms of what we have to carry for Wentz. And any other pick would be a bonus. But if they had the 2-1s, Mark, I think that would have happened by now. So I think what the marketplace is telling them is different. And I think if I'm Howie Roseman, I sit down with Nick Sirianni and Jeff Lurie and say, here's what it looks like over 3 years. We got Jalen on a rookie deal. Here's Wentz's dead money in 21. We pay that bill and flush it. We pick up 2 and something else, and let's go.
Now, I've been asking a lot of people this question. How much of this has to do with Jalen Hurts and them having confidence in Jalen Hurts is not just the starter going into next year, but also possibly being the franchise guy going forward? How much of this has to do with Jalen Hurts and their high opinion of him versus Carson Wentz just not working out here in Philadelphia?
Yes, I think that's definitely part of it. Like, you have a new head coach in Nick Sirianni. You want to make sure that you can sort of put him in a position where he can win from day one. And I'm not saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl and dethrone Tampa or Green Bay in year one, but I don't think you want to go in there with no sense of who you have. So I think it's a really good point, Mark. I've been in situations in year one with Coach Parcells where you want to establish yourself. You want to establish, in my career, Rex Ryan, Eric Mangini, and have success right away from a standpoint that you want to have a head coach get up in front of your team and say, hey, here's the program, and quickly they see that works. And look, when Andy Reid got there a generation ago, it was pretty clear, even though wins didn't happen from day one, that Philly had the right guy. And I'm sure that's what they want to try to get done with Coach Sirianni.
You mentioned Rex Ryan. I'd have to tell you while we're on that subject, nobody's topped you guys in Hard Knocks. Nobody has topped. You guys have been the best Hard Knocks ever as far as I'm concerned.
Mark, I get that a lot. I got to tell you. It's funny. Rex is everything you think he would be. Charismatic, authentic, crazy, entertaining, talented. He's all those things.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and we know that here in Philadelphia, that's for sure. But the Cleveland Browns is pretty good, but you guys still the top dog there. You mentioned Nick Sirianni a couple of times. I certainly want to ask you about him. When he got the head coaching job here in Philadelphia, what jumped to your mind?
I have a lot of respect for him. People in the league know how good he's been at developing young players, and to have, in my opinion, any chance of sustainability, you got to be able to do that. So I think Nick is one of these people. He's not a what you see is what you get guy. What you may see publicly is different. Like, he is a very thoughtful, smart, authoritative coach that will get the most out of his players. So I thought it was a hire that made a ton of sense. It was one that, and Jeff Lurie shared their process publicly, like very thorough, very long. And I think I'm a big believer in that saying, if you have the right process, you'll get the right results. And I think what we saw is those two things went hand in glove.
Yeah, I know after his introductory press conference, a couple of his former players jumped to his defense saying, yeah, sometimes, he's not the best with the public speeches and stuff, but when he's in the locker room, that's his comfort zone. So I certainly hope that's the case here in Philadelphia. Any time frame, to go back to Wentz again, any time frame you see something like this happening? Like what would be the end all be all if you were still in a front office, if you're advising a front office? Is there a drop dead date where you would have to make a deal by?
Mark, I'm not one for a deadline because I think you lose credibility with that. But I think in this situation, it's sooner than later, because if you're Howie Roseman, you're looking at the chessboard, obviously the Rams are off the table right now. And every day that, I'm making this up, but a Marcus Mariota signs right away, let's say, you're going to lose destination. So if you have two teams, Indy and Chicago, in play, You want to get as many as you can and cut the best deal you can. And again, I think in Wentz's case in particular, it bears repeating, Mark. You're not just making the trade within isolation. You're saying to yourself, like, we're recouping all these guaranteed dollars. We're going to take those dollars and we're going to put it into, maybe Dallas Goedert extension or whatever it may be. It's going to help the team long term. And we believe in Jalen Hurts. So if you look at it, hey, this is what Goff got. This is what we should get. Like, it's going to drive you crazy because you're not going to get what, Detroit ultimately got. But that's just, it is what it is. And you got to do the best you can.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the Rams got a pick in return, or excuse me, got a starting quarterback in return. So that it's also not the same thing. Speaking of like packaging and stuff, do you see an opportunity here for other teams to ask for Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz in the same trade as that quote unquote sweetener?
My concern, if I was acquiring that, is what's the cost of Ertz?
Right. Yeah.
It's not, to me. You're talking about two massive contracts. Obviously Carson Wentz isn't going to be renegotiating his contract anytime soon. And if Ertz went someplace else, he'd want a new deal. So it would have to be a team, again, as we're just talking here, like a team like New England who has a ton of cap room. If they saw Wentz and Ertz as a combo, maybe, that would be one of the few teams that would have a need at both positions and the room to really afford both.
There was a report that came out today from the Philadelphia Inquirer's Les Bowen saying he talked to a source in the NFL saying that the Eagles are actually thinking about, and he said it was not an Eagles source, but he said a league source said the Eagles are looking at a quarterback at number 6 overall. Would that be a surprise to you?
No, I think they got to scour and look. You can't have enough. If Carson Wentz isn't there, you may like Jalen Hurts, but look, given the way he plays and the ball is going to be in his hands so much, you can't have enough of them. And candidly, that's some of the biggest mistakes I made. In Miami, we had Ryan Tannehill. When he was healthy, we were going to the playoffs. He got hurt, and we weren't good enough. So that makes a ton of sense to me.
I don't know if I'm sure you heard the quote last year, quarterback factory. It's one that has been repeated many times here in Philadelphia. No doubt about that. One more thing. Mark Sanchez was obviously a guy you guys drafted in New York. He ended up having a little stint here in Philadelphia as well. I'm curious, any behind the scenes Mark Sanchez stories, maybe along the lines of a young quarterback trying to progress?
Mark had it's funny you mentioned him because I think it's somewhat similar to Carson Wentz. Like, Mark won 4 road playoff games early in his career. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers. It's remarkable, those wins. Mark just struggled with, the inopportune turnovers and that really was his fatal flaw. So smart, competitive, could make all the throws, but there was 2 or 3 plays a game that were just catastrophic. And ironically, I was in Miami when we came up to Philly, and it was one of his turnovers that helped turn the tide in a game. But great guy, great teammate. Think the world of him. But I think when you look back at his career, it could have been a little bit better than it was.
Mike Tannenbaum, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, man. Thank you. And also check out the 33rdteam.com. An NFL think tank is the best way to describe that, right?
That's right. It's comprised of people that have actually made decisions in the league. So try to bring a little bit of a different point of view, and really appreciate you having me, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Also, ESPN NFL front office insider Mike Tannenbaum joining us here on the Zados Investments guest line. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the most interesting thing I take away, the two most interesting things is one, from Mike Tannenbaum there, is you have to look at it from a league-wide perspective. And for the same reason the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz when they did and gave up so much to get him, albeit it wasn't right, but this was their philosophy going into it, was Howie Roseman said there was no quarterback coming out in the near future that they were going to have interest in, and the following year is Patrick Mahomes. But no big deal. Let's just forget that. Anyway, so Mike Tannenbaum says from the rest of the NFL perspective, you look at not this year, but next year's draft, there's one quarterback with a first-round grade. A lot can change in a year. However, if other teams are thinking that we couldn't get a quarterback or possibly won't get a quarterback where they are right now in the first round, or where they're at in the second round, where they are really with any of the earlier draft picks, they might be enticed to trade with the Eagles to move up, or not even move up, but to trade with the Eagles to get Carson Wentz now as opposed to getting a quarterback later. Not my philosophy, but he's saying that might be the philosophy of some general managers around the National Football League, because there might not be a ton of quarterbacks coming out next year. There's a ton of quarterbacks coming out this year that have first-round grades, at least 4 or 5 of them. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. But if they can get their hands on a veteran quarterback like Carson Wentz, that might make them feel a little bit better. I still see the Colts as the only team that really can pull this off. Are there other teams that could possibly do it? Sure, but the most likely is the Colts. And the biggest reason for that is simply for the fact that Carson Wentz wants to go there. He doesn't want to go to Chicago, as we pointed out all the reasons why he wouldn't go to Chicago, because he doesn't have that same comfort zone that he has with a guy like Frank Reich, that he would have with Press Taylor. So if it's Carson Wentz's decision to be made, then he's going to want to go to the Colts. And the Eagles just might have to say, 2 second-round picks, yeah, I'll take it. A second-round pick, yeah, I'll take it. That might just have to be what is going to be offered and what is going to be accepted by the Philadelphia Eagles. But you know what? That's Mike Tannenbaum's take on. Oh, the second thing that I also took away from that was that's a huge, ginormous cup of iced coffee. Man, he loved it. But other than that, I did ask Eagles fans yesterday about what they would feel comfortable with in terms of a return for Carson Wentz. And we'll get to that in just a second. But I do want to tell you about some of our fine sponsors here on the Farzy Show, and that is DraftKings. DraftKings right now have a great offer going on for new users. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. They're giving all new players a chance to win $100. That's right. New customers can bet $1 on any basketball team to hit a three-pointer this week in any basketball game, and they could turn $1 into $100. That's right. It takes one three-pointer being hit by your chosen team to turn $1 into $100. Does it sound like a no-brainer? Well, it's because it is a no-brainer. This great offer from DraftKings won't last forever, so make sure you go to the App Store and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and take action. Basketball, maybe it's not your sport. If it isn't, DraftKings Sportsbook has daily odds on hockey, soccer, and so much more. DraftKings has paid out over $7 billion to its customers since 2012, so they know a thing or two about big paydays. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code Farzy. That's what's promo code Farzy to get your shot to turn $1 into $100 when you bet on any team to hit a three-pointer in any basketball game this week. Promo code Farzy for new customers to get a shot to win $100. That's right, $100 is 100 to 1 odds for you. Any basketball team hitting a three-point shot only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, new customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Winning pays out in 4 $25 free bets. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You know, some of us miss going to restaurants. You don't have to miss going to a restaurant like Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland. They are fantastic. They're open for business. They are great. Whether you like to dine in a more upscale steakhouse or maybe a casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality of prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. And my man, Tony Cavada, you know, how fresh is that seafood? My man's probably fishing right now, as a matter of fact, to make sure he gives you the freshest seafood. And also, his family has a great wine list, including Cavada Cellars wines. Absolutely perfect pairing with a lot of their meals at Steak and Maine. Every lunch, they're open right now every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch as well. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel as well as the Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself. Go to steakandmaine.com. And how about our friend Sky Motor Cars? SkyMotorcars.com giving us some great giveaways right now, especially with the Carson Wentz jersey. Eagles might be giving him away. They're giving away a jersey right now for Carson Wentz. Big thank you to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you haven't heard about Sky Motor Cars, come on now, what are you doing? Sky Motor Cars is the premier luxury car dealership in the greater Philadelphia area that promises to provide the highest and efficient service, whether you're buying, selling, or trading in your car. But Sky is not just for luxury vehicles. Oh, no, their inventory has something for everybody's budget. And stay tuned for special giveaways later in the week as well, courtesy of Sky Motor Cars and their partner, Carson Wentz. Go visit SkyMotorcars.com. That's SkyMotorcars.com to learn more. And when you buy or sell your next vehicle with Sky, make sure you tell them Marc Farzetta sent you. As I've been saying, we went out into the streets yesterday. We went into the field, as I like to do. Went down the 9th Street, right? Went down the Italian market. And I figured, people there know deals. All right? People there know how to haggle. So what would the experts on 9th Street, what would they know about a possible return for Carson Wentz? What would make them happy? What would be a good trade? And that's all part of our Farzy in the Field this week, brought to you by our good friends at Fan Up. Download the Fan Up app right now. What do the good people in Philadelphia say would make them happy for a return on a Carson Wentz trade? Take a look. Carson Wentz would make you happy as an Eagles fan.
First round draft choice. Maybe Nick Foles back.
Just throw that in there, of course.
Carson Wentz, 2 first-round draft picks and a second-round draft pick for Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun
Watson.
All right, I think, hey, Howie, there's your new assistant. Thank you. Man knows what he's doing.
A 1 and a second rounder for him, I think, would be a fair trade for him. Other than that, I would have total on him. First round draft pick.
That's it? No other negotiation.
That's all I need.
I'm sorry, who do you want? Okay, thank you, brother. What kind of return for Carson Wentz would make you happy as an Eagles fan?
2 second-round picks would be good.
Sir, can I ask you? A bag of, okay, that was just a drive-by. We've been doing this, a walk-by a lot during COVID. That was a walk-by Farzy in the field. He said a bag of donuts for Carson. All right, I'll take it. I like donuts. Do you like donuts?
Not stale donuts.
Okay. Oh, he said stale donuts? Yeah. That's the problem. That's the problem with a walk-by. I can't understand. All right, so you're a football fan?
Yes, I am.
All right, who's your squad?
Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys. Okay, so I'm not gonna jump on that for a second, but I'll just objective point of view. That's what we'll go for here. Objective point of view. What do you think the Eagles can get back for Carson Wentz?
Maybe a 5th-round pick.
Maybe a 5th-round pick. Okay. So I tried for objectivity, and wouldn't you know it, a Cowboys fan didn't have it. Go figure. If Carson Wentz was one of these vegetables or fruits, what type of fruit or vegetable would he be?
Lemon.
Sir, do you sell here at 9th Street?
Yes, I do.
Okay, if Carson Wentz was one of your vegetables or fruits, what type of fruit or vegetable would he be?
A tomato.
Why would he be a tomato, sir?
So I can squash him.
Okay, all right, I think I'm done with you. Thank you, bye. Gotta love the people of Philadelphia with their trade proposals. I think the second guy was my favorite. It was the second guy, the Deshaun Watson guy. Anyway, yeah, he was my favorite. It's what you call character. It's what you call a character. Anyway, good times, and thanks to all the people there on 9th Street for bringing us that Farzy in the field. Brought to us by our great friends at Fan Up. Download the Fan Up app right now in the App Store and get in on all the fun. If you want to be an MVP, Fan Up app is for you. Do want to talk to you right now about our social media check-in brought to you by our friends at Steak and Made. The social media check-in has everything to do with Les Bowen's tweet yesterday about what the Eagles could be doing with that 6th overall pick and how the Colts, as that's what it's narrowed down to. It's the Colts are bust right now as far as the Carson Wentz trade goes. The responses to Les Bowen's tweet are nothing short of spectacular. I recommend going to check out Les Bowen's Twitter feed and just go and scroll through those. My option there was simply just the facepalm, and not just any facepalm. The facepalm from Naked Gun, where it's a couple of people slapping their head, and then it's a whole audience of people slapping their head, and it's a whole director's trailer, people just face palming. That's where we're at right now with the Eagles, and it has nothing to do with impatience. Last week, it's funny how in more time I've grown less impatient. I've grown more patient, actually, because I'm not expecting some kind of great haul in return. I'm not expecting at the end of this we all look at Howie and go, that's Howie Roseman, the magician, turning nothing into something as far as the trade goes. Now, as we've said many times, this is where Howie usually flourishes. Where he sinks is the draft, but where he flourishes in the actual idea of a trade. I mean, look at Carson Wentz in himself. Just look at this acquisition by Howie Roseman. This is a horrible admission of Howie to make this trade. This is the franchise guy that Howie went after, that Howie was aggressive for. And essentially, we got handful of good games his rookie year before Lane Johnson was hurt. Then we had his MVP season. Cool. Not so great in 2018. Good end to 2019. 2020 wasn't really good for anybody. It wasn't good for Howie. It wasn't good for Carson. And a lot of drama along the way as this entire thing has played out. So now we're going to give Howie apparently another opportunity here, according to Les Bowen. At least they're leaning in the direction to draft a quarterback there at number 6. So now we're going to give Howie another opportunity to evaluate the most important position in all the sports. I'll say this, the most important position in all of Philadelphia, at least, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. Not very optimistic, folks. Just trying to be real with you. I want to be optimistic. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I got to be real. And I don't know anyone that's feeling all warm and fuzzy inside when they think about Howie Roseman rebuilding this team. So that was our social media check-in brought to you by our friends at Steak and Maine. Now time for our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars. If you didn't see this last night, Doc Rivers, I know sometimes you can look at a coach and say, hey, why is he calling out media members? This was a fun way to call out a media member because I think we've all been there. We have all been Jackson Frank of Liberty Ballers, does a great job covering the Sixers. We've all been Jackson Frank on a Zoom call where maybe we're just a little chill. I know when we were setting up this show, we were on Zoom calls with different people, our web guys and all that stuff, and a producer and all that. And I did most of the calls from my bedroom. I'll admit it. And I wasn't shy about it either. I don't know if I would go on a post-game press conference from my bedroom laying in my bed, but that's what Jackson Frank did. Take a look at this, and Doc Rivers having some fun with it.
Hey, Doc. Pretty prolific first half from you guys without Ben, and then Joel kind of a
Jackson, are you in bed right now?
I am laying on my bed, yeah.
Jesus Christ, Jackson. All right, I'm sorry.
First off, all the credit in the world for just having a fun moment right there. But all the credit in the world to Jackson Frank himself, because he wasn't like, oh, no, I'm in my living room. Like, he owned it. And that's what you got to do. You got to own it. It's a funny moment. He gets called for it, completely owned it, way to fess up to it. I don't know why some people would feel the need to lie all of a sudden, but good for him. And if you're in your bed, I don't know if he was just literally just laying in bed and the pillows were all over the place and it was undeniable. Maybe it was. I don't know. I didn't see the Zoom, but I just know it was enough for Doc Rivers to look around because you see his eyes moving around a little bit, and he's like, that dude's definitely in his bedroom. He's definitely in his bed. Come on, man. Doc Rivers having some fun with some media members, and he could do that after a win, albeit a scary win. And guy tweeted me this. I did coin the phrase, there's no moral victories, but can there be moral losses? Last night was close to a moral loss. If it wasn't for Joel Embiid, it would still be a moral loss. It might even be an actual loss. But no, I still feel good that they found a way to win. Coming back from the road trip, no Ben Simmons, I get it. Joel Embiid still nursing the back injury. Dwight Howard, by the way, we talked about it yesterday. It was his personal loss in his family. There was a death in his family. It was his grandmom. It was his grandmom. And as someone, I lost my grandmother 3 years ago to the day, literally 3 years prior. Like, that's tough stuff, man. And that guy went out there and balled. Good for him. So credit to Dwight Howard for that. Something else we're going to do. Spring training. First workout, pitchers and catchers. Everyone reported yesterday. We're going to get workouts underway. I love seeing this. Every single year I look forward to this stuff. I saw the guys doing the calisthenics. I think it was John Clark of NBC Sports Philadelphia posting a video of Andrew Knapp having some fun with some of the guys there and everything, and they're doing their drills and all that. And I'm a geek. I'm a nerd for that stuff. But new Phillies pitcher Archie Bradley came out there yesterday, strolling in to spring training, and he was having some fun.
Good morning, everyone. It is first day of spring. Say hi to my man, Zach Wheeler. He's in my group today. Rocking the Grateful Dead, that Philly green, baby. It's going to be a good year for us Phillies fans. This team, I'm excited. We got a lot of work to do, but it's the start of it. I got to check into testing. Good morning, first day of spring. Let's get it, y'all. Let's go Phillies.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's go Phillies. There you go, Archie Bradley. Those are the vibes we want going into spring training, going into the Spectrum, the Carpenter Complex, whatever they're calling it now, Spectrum Field. Like that. Those are the vibes we want to establish in the very early goings of all this. You gotta love that. I mentioned earlier in the show today, Flyers looking to play their first game in 11 days. Flyers Rangers tonight. Puck drop 7:00. It was a dwindling. It seemed like dwindling practice roster. Hopefully they get a couple of guys back and they continue to build on that. I did like Kevin Hayes, what he had to say yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, just about how there's no excuses. Like that's exactly what you want to hear from one of your leaders on your team, especially when you're leading goal scorers, that there's no excuses. Forget about rust for a second. Forget about all that. Forget about time off. You're playing. So throw everything out the window. Nobody cares about what had already happened. It's all about what's going to happen. So make sure they're focused on that. Love hearing that from Kevin Hayes. That's what you call not being in denial. There's no grading on a curve in professional sports, and Kevin Hayes gets that. This is fascinating to me because very rarely, well, I'll just say this. It's frowned upon, I think. We've we grew up with stories. A lot of us did about the great Harry Callis and Richie Ashburn being in the booth. We grew up with stories of them going out on the town after games and having a lot of fun and indulging in some drinks, right? And I can honestly say I had a drink with Harry Callis once. I had a Red Bull and he had an O'Doul's. It was much later in Harry Callis's career. But this would have been 2005 that happened at Chickies and Pete's, as a matter of fact, in South Philly. And just had a great conversation with him. And we were working on a TV show at the time, and he was a guest. And it was great just to have 15, 20 minutes, me one-on-one with Harry Callis. I'll never forget it. But those guys were known in their day for being booze hounds. Well, wouldn't you know it? Joe Buck goes on the Colin Cowherd show, and Colin Cowherd sets him up by saying the rapport he has with Troy Aikman is that of two guys in a booth having fun, calling a game with a glass of bourbon that they occasionally sip. Like they're relaxed, they have fun, they have that good rapport. So Joe Buck corrects him and says, actually, it's a Grand Marnier, and I think he said tequila or tequila. And I thought that was interesting. I'm not much of a tequila man. I'm a bourbon man myself. But he said, yeah, we do have that. We do have that drink in the booth. And they will have that sip as the game goes on. And part of the thinking isn't just to stay calm, I guess, throughout a game and stay poised. But Joe Buck also said when he was starting out at Fox to do baseball, he would have the production runner, which is essentially like the intern in the booth, more or less, go get the biggest beer that they sold in the stadium at the ballpark and bring it to him, and he would sip that beer throughout the game. And he said that was his reminder to stay loose, have fun, realize he's calling a game, and help that kind of fun translate to the audience. Whatever helps you. I think there's something to be said for that. I think that's cool. I know it's frowned upon by a lot of people, but I don't, as long as it doesn't get in the way of the game, obviously, as long as it becomes a problem, fine. But if that's what they've been doing for all this time, you're talking about Joe Buck being in the booth for how many, 20, 25 years, 30 years? If that's what he uses to get going, hey, man, I love his broadcast. I know I'm in the minority. I like Joe Buck. I think he calls a great game. I don't think he hates Philadelphia. I don't even know if it's still his tag on Twitter or not, but he had for the longest time saying, Joe Buck, broadcaster, I hate every team except you. What was it? No, I love every team except yours. I think that's what he actually says. And at one point, I think it actually said, relax, Philadelphia and Chicago. I don't hate your teams. I think the guy's great. I think he does a great job. And to learn that he enjoys a little cocktail here and there with Troy Aikman or John Smoltz maybe in the booth as well, I'm fine with it. I know some people might not be, but I can't help it. I think that's hilarious. Sixers, by the way, last night on Joel Embiid, I want to make sure I got this in here. This was from CBSSports.com. Joel Embiid pleased his team with the comeback, and they were great last night. He had that fadeaway jumper I've mentioned a couple of times already. But how about this? With his game last night, this is his 12th straight game with at least 25 points, which puts him in a 76ers class with Allen Iverson and Wilt Chamberlain as the only other Sixers to have a streak of at least 12 straight games with 25 points. It's one of those stats that makes you go, there's only two people in the Sixers history that have ever done that? 12 straight games with at least 25 points? But still, if it's only Allen Iverson and Wilt Chamberlain, those are two good names to be on that list with. Joel Embiid continues to get national accolades now, and I know Charles Barkley, who I would have thought was on that list. Charles Barkley was on with Bill Simmons recently, where he talked about Joel Embiid playing like an MVP candidate. He also talked about the Sixers being the best team in the Eastern Conference and how they match up well against the Nets. It's worth a listen if you get a chance to listen to that interview, Joel Embiid with Bill Simmons. So nice little stat right there for Joel Embiid, and hopefully they continue to play well against the Bulls coming up tomorrow night. 7 o'clock, Joel Embiid keeps that rolling, and hopefully Ben Simmons, they did say it was an illness. They did specify when asked that it's not COVID related. It's just the general flu, apparently, with Ben Simmons, and hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later for the Sixers. All right, time for big bets right now, brought to you by our good friends at DraftKings. I didn't know Bertans was going to hit 9 threes last night, folks. I miss Scoozy, and I lost. I am now 6-1 in my last 7 games. 6-1, and I don't feel good about that. I would like to stay perfect. I think that was a BS call with Bradley Beal getting that at the end of the game, and he hit some free throws with 1/10 of a second left. The line when I bet it was 3.5. It moved to, I believe, 2.5. So I thought the Nuggets were going to bounce back. Jamal Murray had a much, much better game this time around than he did in the previous game of their back-to-back against the Boston Celtics. So the Wizards, the Nuggets did bounce back. I was right, but they didn't bounce back to the point of a win. They didn't bounce back to the point of covering the -3.5, plus 3.5 they were getting going into that game against the Wizards. So bottom line is I lost. I apologize. How about this, though? Let's go here. Lakers, Nets tonight. That's a game you could bet right now. Lakers, I believe, are at -2.5 going into that game. You can also look at some other games going on tonight that I find very interesting on DraftKings, and I thought I wrote that down. I did not. My apologies on that, but I have it right here. That's what phones are for in the modern day. Lakers are -2.5 right now going up against the Nets. 10-10 tip-off tonight in Los Angeles. But the game I do like to hear is Bucks -6.5 going up against the Raptors. Bucks -6.5 going up against the Raptors. That game's a little earlier, 7:40. I actually I like the Raptors actually covering that. I like the Bucks to win, but I like the Raptors to cover that tonight. They just played the other night. The Raptors took it to them, but I actually like that game tonight. So that's the game I'll be going with DraftKings tonight. My thanks to Mike Tannenbaum for joining the program today. A lot of interesting stuff. You can catch the replay, obviously, on our YouTube channel as well as on Facebook Live, on Twitter as well. Thanks to all the people who watched on Twitter today, Twitch, YouTube. Subscribe to all of it, folks, and go ahead and give us a follow as well at Farzy Show on Twitter. My thanks to Jim Hyden for producing the program, and also Farzy Show is a Josh Weinfeld production here, Buzz Sports and Entertainment. Thanks so much for joining the show today. Hope you guys have a great day. I'm looking out the window, and it looks like it is starting to snow again. So we knew that was coming. Good luck to you all. Good luck to you all, and especially those that got a shovel today. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Take it easy.